Today we'll code a moving Remy from Ratatouille. Remy sits on a headband and moves his arms up and down to pull your hair. I made one version that moves randomly and one version that matches your movements using an accelerometer. We'll start simple with the random version, but code for both versions is available on my GitHub. Let's get started with what you'll need. For the arms, I used two sub-micro servos from Adafruit. You can use regular servos if you want, but you might have to expand the 3D model to fit them. If you've never worked with servos before, check out my previous video for a beginner's guide. For the board, I used Adafruit's Metro Mini with a mini breadboard for convenience. If you're buying a tiny board like this, be aware that you'll probably have to solder your connections. For power, I used a rechargeable phone power bank I had laying around with a USB connection. You'll also need access to a 3D printer or the ability to sculpt a rat out of something like polymer clay. For craft materials, you'll need rat-colored paint, hot glue, a headband, and some medium gauge wire like floral wire to attach Remy's shoulders to his body and to the motors. Let's get our rat printed first. I found a starter model online and then edited the body to have cavities for the motor, and I redesigned the arms to be detachable. You can download the model at my GitHub linked below. If you're handy with 3D modeling, I would recommend making Remy's hands way bigger to fit more hair. I printed with default supports, and as always, I recommend checking with your local library about 3D printing services if you don't have access to one yourself. While your rat prints, set up your microcontroller. Our connections are pretty simple. Each servo needs its own power, ground, and data connection. If you want more details on how servos work, see my last video tutorial for a crash course. I'll connect one servo data line to pin 5 and the other data line to pin 7. Then I'll connect the 5-volt power pin on my microcontroller to each of the power lines. Finally, I'll connect the ground power pins on the microcontroller to each ground line. If you don't have the Arduino software installed, you can download it for free at arduino.cc. Open it up and add the following code. You can pause the screen here until you're ready. You can also copy and paste the code from my GitHub linked below. Remember that capitalization and punctuation matter when you're coding. Plug everything in, use the menu bar to select the board and the port that you're using, and then click the right pointing arrow to upload your code. Make sure your motors move, and then unplug everything for assembly. Once your 3D printer is done, paint that rat. I got a lot of comments about Remy looking like he had seen some things, so please give him some eyelids. Once the paint is dry, hot glue the base to the headband and then hot glue the servos into the back of the base. I recommend gluing them in the same orientation you see here with the arm side closer to the bottom. Then use some wire or a jewelry headpin to skewer together Remy's arm to his shoulder through the holes. Secure the arms by looping or gluing the end of the wire. At this point, Remy's arms aren't attached to the motor yet, and that's intentional. When you put the little plastic arm onto your servo motor, it probably wasn't the exact same position that I used, so even though we use the same numbers in code, your arm probably points in a different direction. So plug Remy back in and edit the angle values for each of your motors until they move between roughly parallel to the ground and vertical behind Remy's back. Once you're happy with the movement, hot glue a piece of wire between the servo arm and Remy's hand. This is what will make Remy's arm move. When you think it's working, and I cannot emphasize this enough, do not use your real hair yet. For legal reasons, this whole tutorial is for entertainment only. Please take precautions to not scalp yourself, like testing with string first. It's up to you how you want to handle the microcontroller and the battery pack. Personally, I just wired everything down the back of my head and let the microcontroller hang out near my collar, but you could get fancy with a hidden pocket. When you're ready to try it out, it helps to use a dental threader to get your hair through his armholes. Turn on your battery pack and enjoy! If you're already familiar with Arduino accelerometers and want to upgrade Remy to track your movements, the code for that version is linked below in my GitHub, or if you're brand new to accelerometers and want me to make a video, let me know in the comments. See you next time.